can we start with the events of yesterday? I mean, I presume, as the man who's written the book, the definitive book, your mind has been racing since that arrest yesterday. And I know we need to be careful about what we say about it, but the impact of it is what I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on.
Yes, well, I mean, we haven't had anything like this in royal history ever before, really. I mean, it is extraordinary. It's not something I thought would happen. I thought the police would find reasons not to investigate Andrew. So it came as a great surprise, a pleasure, because I and others have been calling for this for a long time, given the Epstein sort of leaks that were coming out and the mounting evidence, I would say, of his passing on of confidential information to people who shouldn't have got it. So I take my hat off to the police. I mean, they've acted very swiftly. I wonder why they acted so swiftly. One of my sources had told me there was going to be big news around now. That was before Christmas. So that suggests that possibly this has been in the works for a long time.
I'm surprised to hear you say that you were surprised that the police did this. Had you essentially resigned yourself to the fact that for the rest of his days, the establishment, or whatever you want to call it, was going to find ways to stave it off, whatever it is for him?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I spent 10 years banging my head against walls and the establishment trying to evade proper accountability. I had it when I did the Mountbatten papers, trying to get those released for the public. They're bought with public funds, and they throw everything at you. They try and discredit you. They try and bankrupt you. And they're pretty ruthless in the way they operate. So I thought the police would do what they've done in the past with the Andrew case, say nothing to see here. We've looked. Sorry, mate.
Can I ask you as well about the King's statement yesterday? And clearly, there's no sense that the royal family or the monarchy, the institution itself, will have sat back yesterday and thought, right, our work is done. Because in terms of PR, in terms of connection to the British public, it clearly isn't yet done. There's a lot that people still want to know and want to say and want to hear information about. But do you think that statement, first of all, from the King, was the right tone? I mean, it was pretty ice cold towards Andrew, wasn't it?
Yes, I mean, we're crawling there. I mean, kicking and screaming, the royal family are coming to realize how serious this is. They brought this crisis on themselves. If they dealt with Andrew 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even a few months ago properly, this thing wouldn't have expanded. And that we're now asking wider questions about royal accountability and privilege. And the questions asked about the King's role in this. Why did he contribute? Even if he didn't contribute, he must have been aware of the discussions and the arguments for paying her this hush money. But I know from my own research that complaints were made to the Queen for many, many years to her private secretaries. This would have been shared with Charles. Uh, Journalists who raised issues there were denials, there were legal threats, there were strong arm tactics. So I just feel that the public still don't quite feel that we've got the full story. And if it emerges that there's been a huge cover up and the palace have known about this for a long time and did nothing about it, then I think that is going to increase public anger and concern. And it is about this very delicate relationship between the public and the royal family. Their privileges come with duties and obligations. And if we feel they've got their noses in the trough, and taking advantage of their royal status and the fact that there's no accountability, then I think people are going to be very concerned. And that is the problem. There has been no oversight to the royal family, accountancy, parliamentary scrutiny, anything like that. Because
We,
let's not forget,
yeah.
this is a national security scandal as well.
We were often told, weren't we, in the lifetime of the late Queen Elizabeth, that she used to say, she'd wear those very poppy, bright colours, and she used to say, I have to be seen to be believed. I was thinking about that yesterday and thinking, well, actually, it's almost the other way around at the moment. Now you need to be believed to be wanted. That's where they are now.
Absolutely. And I think, the opaqueness of their finances, the way they deal with their archives, which is a great concern of mine, the way that they kind of manipulate and curate their historical record relating to them. I think those days are over with social media. They can't behave in the same way as they did before. Deferential press is gone. This is the Me Too monarchy moment. This is the end of the old monarchy, and I hope the beginning of a new, more 21st century monarchy, which is receptive to public opinion, is shaped by uh, high standards in public life. I mean, they've really let us down.
And what you said there a moment ago about, we don't know what Charles knew as prince or as king, but we do know, or we were told that for some years, possibly as much as a decade, before the deaths of Philip and Elizabeth, his parents, that he was playing a greater and greater role in the day-to-day process, not least so that he was ready when the moment came. Of course, the Queen was still the Queen, but that he was ready, which again would point to him being deep in the mix of any decisions that were being made.
Absolutely. I mean, Tom Sykes has written about this very well. Um, there's no doubt that Charles was operating very closely with the Queen. I mean, he's also been in power on the throne for several years now. So I don't think he can duck this issue. The book came out, I was vilified for suggesting the Queen had protected Andrew. Now the line coming out seems to be actually it's all the Queen's fault and no one else knew. And I just don't think the
Which
public
is
are going to buy that.
convenient, yeah. Can I ask you as well about Sarah Ferguson? Do we know where she is? Do we know what she plans to do? I imagine yesterday was a fairly horrific day for her as well.
Yes, I think she must be very frightened. I understand she's been in the clinic in Switzerland. She's been staying with friends. I think she was in Switzerland. The whole thing, the happiest divorced couple are no longer. And I think also attention is increasingly being focused on the children. I mean, none of them come out well from the Epstein leaks.
I want to come on to the girls, the women, obviously now the daughters, in a moment. But on Fergie, as she's known by the British public, the closeness of Sarah and Andrew post divorce, literally living together, in between the various travels that you describe. Did you find evidence that that was essentially not so much about an affection, but about an enterprise, to use the word you just did, that she, in a sense, gave cover to certain things? Did you find any evidence of that?
Yes, I write a lot about the relationship. It was a very cynical relationship. I mean, she hung on to Andrew because, like a limpet, much to the concern of the rest of the royal family, because clearly that was her calling card for business and her social ambitions. She got her laundry done.
And she gave
Uh,
interviews in America, didn't she? Glowing commentary about him and the work he does for the crown and the country and all of that.
Yes, I mean, that was her brand, that she'd stood up for her man. He was a great man, and he'd been traduced by terrible people like me. And she loved it when the royal family took her back within their fold, and she was photographed at Sandringham and Ascot and Wimbledon, because that was all part of the marketing. And I think they were just incredibly naive. Prince Philip seems to be about the one person who got the measure of her. But it was very cynical. I mean, they had their own relationships. It suited them. I mean, even long after their daughters had left home, Andrew was taking the daughters on these taxpayer-funded trips with huge attendance security costs to collect these contacts that they're now exploiting, particularly in the Middle East and China. But yes, I mean, both their jobs have come, they do client relations. I mean, these jobs have come from their Filofax. And so I think what's also wrong is that Princess Beatrice is promoting herself in the Middle East. Actually, her commercial activities, describing herself as Her Royal Highness Princess Beatrice. Now, she's not there as representing the country. She's there on her own behalf, running her own business interests, her own business. I mean, I do find it extraordinary that both girls still have subsidized accommodation in Kensington Palace and St James's Palace, though they've never really been working royals.
Am I right in saying Beatrice is a councillor of state, which is actually a good deal of royal responsibility, isn't it? Or could be at a given moment.
Yes, I mean, they do it by the line of succession, and she's clearly higher up than some of the others. So we have this extraordinary situation where some of the hard-working royals who are really doing their bit are actually have less seniority and could be called on later than Princess Beatrice.
Somebody like Sophie, Duke of
Exactly. I
Duchess
mean,
of
I
Edinburgh.
do think it's extraordinary that some of the workhorses don't really get the credit, and yet the York family seem to be in there. But Andrew was pushing them all the time. He was keen for them to be working royals, keen for them to have royal security, and I'm afraid he kind of twisted everyone's finger for years to get this.
what you said a moment ago about the speed with which, or lack of speed with which, the royal family has moved on this and seen the dangers, really seen the dangers coming to their door, and the speed of that has clearly been increasing, hasn't it? The sort of roads have been narrowing. Do you think they're still in that process of not, almost not quite getting it?
Well, I do think that it's always too little, too late. They never get ahead of the story,
Mm.
and I think they must have good advice. I mean, reputation management would tell you how you need to get ahead. You need to.
That's interesting what you've just said there, because I was mulling this over yesterday and wondering whether, if they handle it correctly, and are as transparent as they possibly can be, and I say that to a man who's obviously been blocked by them many times, but if they handle this correctly, it could arguably accelerate change that was always going to come or needed in the longer term. It could actually end up benefiting them in the way that painful periods in our own lives sometimes can.
Absolutely. I've argued this in a whole series of articles and interviews that this could be the making of the royal family. It defines Charles's reign. This is the man who actually brought reform and modernized the royal family. It couldn't be done under the Queen. She'd been there too long. And this should be an opportunity for them to do all the things that people like me have been saying for years, to make the finances more open, to allow parliamentary scrutiny, to not hide behind the Freedom of Information Act, to have a proper royal register, to unseal royal wills. All these things would help restore trust. I mean, I wrote in The Spectator last week of just obvious things that they're not going to use Buckingham Palace except as offices. Then is there a reason why we shouldn't hang up the art that's hanging at the basements of the Tate and actually open it more widely to the public? I mean, they've got all these royal palaces which are sort of farmed out to various members of the royal family, which aren't put out to tender in the way they should be. Could they consolidate all that? Does Edward really need to be in Bagshot? Could he not actually be in St James's or Clarence House or somewhere else?
That's another
And
very
let
large house in Windsor, Bagshot, for people who don't know.
Yes, sorry. So I mean, there are a lot of things they could do to address public concern, and just have a bit more transparency. I mean, the fact that when I tried to get access to Andrew's records, and none of the records of his time as a trade envoy have been released, though they should be, I was told they wouldn't be released until 2065. We have records going back to the Victorian period, which are still closed. You have no proper inventory at the Royal Archives. They're very selective who they allow in to look at, to research things. This isn't the mark of a modern a democratic monarchy,
And
really.
we've been speaking about Beatrice and Eugenie and Sarah in this conversation. I wonder whether, to speak to what you've just said about what they could do with all of this, what comes out in your book and other accounts of the lives of all of the people that we're talking about is that, so let's just go to Sandringham as an example. Yesterday, when the arrest took place, Sandringham Estate is a place where Diana, Sarah, through her father, Major Ronald Ferguson, would be playing with the royals when they were children. So these people are essentially almost siblings / cousins in terms of how long they've known each other. Does that make change difficult? Do they have like an inbuilt bone deep loyalty to people long after they should have?
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the problems I had researching the book, that there's a merger of silence if you're in royal circles, and the royal circles can be quite wide, because people don't want to be thrown out of the gang. They still want the nice invitations on the mantelpiece. And I was, amazed that, people I knew were quite critical of them still wanted to hang in with them because clearly that was the thing. And even when I researched my Mountbatten book, I went to stay with a very close friend of Lord Mountbatten, and she had her son there who'd been at school with Prince Andrew, and his son was there who'd been at school with Prince William. And you can see these generational things. And I mean, even the
Ties.
mistresses are passed on. I mean, Lord Mountbatten would pass on a mistress to Prince Philip. It's a very, very tight circle and very hard to penetrate.